Hello again. This is Srinath Reddy. Welcome to another edition of Intentwise webinars. I'm the founder and CEO of Intentwise. I'm going to be your host today. A quick intro about Intentwise. We are a provider of a technology platform and services to help advertisers on Amazon really maximize their return from their advertising spend. And if you want to learn more about us, certainly visit our website, schedule a conversation or schedule a demo. It can go from there. We do these webinars regularly in the spirit of sharing best practices, sharing our experiences and knowledge with you. As you know, our topic today is Amazon advertising in Mexico. We're super excited to bring a couple of presenters today. And before I introduce them, I want to get a couple of logistical things out of the way. As we roll through the presentation, I'm sure you'll have questions. Feel free to post them in the Q&A section, and we will address the questions a couple of times, one potentially at the halfway mark and another at the end of the presentation. And that's one. The other thing is we are recording this presentation, so we'll make this available in a couple of days, after today's webinar is done. With that, let me introduce you to the two speakers in today's conversation. One is Agustina Escudero. Super excited to have her. She works for Amazon. She's the head of DSP as well as agencies in Mexico.
Hello, thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you everyone for joining our call today. I'm here if you have any questions regarding all the products or presentation that we're going to see.
Awesome. And then the two, we have Antonio Ixome. He's the founder and CEO of Profit Logic. Profit Logic is a full service Amazon agency. Profit Logic is also an Intentwise partner, and they have helped quite a few brands scale up in Mexico. He also happens to be a Google and Facebook alum, where he has overseen the growth of these platforms in Mexico. So let's just say he knows a thing or two about Amazon advertising in Mexico. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Antonio, and he's going to lead us through a presentation. Antonio, take it away.
Thank you, Srinath, and hello everybody, and welcome to our webinar. We're very excited about talking to you today, and we're hoping you will get valuable information for your launch of your products in Mexico. Some of the topics that we'll cover today will be a brief introduction to Mexico. We will then follow with the state of e-commerce in the country, along with a detailed strategy for how to launch. And finally, we will cover advertising in Mexico. So first of all, welcome guys to Mexico. I wanted to start with a few key facts about our country. We have 129 million people with a 63% penetration of internet users. Those account for 82 million people going online every day. So Mexico is a $1.2 trillion economy, making it the 15th largest in the world. The spending digital marketing is also very high. Last year, it accounted for $1.5 billion. Amazon Mexico launched in 2015, and last year, over 22 million people visited their website. As you can see, they're growing rapidly from the previous year. If you compare it to the 8 million people that visited their site every month. As you can see, e-commerce is growing fast in our country, increasing at double digits each year. That's consistent. We're expecting this pace to accelerate as digital players keep expanding their presence and offer more services. For some industries, e-commerce already represents a significant share of market. Clothing is accounting for $17 billion a year, electronics for $14 billion, and toys for $10 billion of sales online. Amazon advertising launched in late 2018 in Mexico. Last year, it gained traction, and given the pace of the adoption in the US, which you can see in this chart, we're expecting it to gain widespread adoption during 2020. In fact, we're already seeing increased competition in both search and display in several industries. And that makes sense since their traffic and inventory keeps growing, given their increasing large base of current customers. So now, getting back to launching in Mexico. Amazon launched in 2015 with just a few categories, expanding into fashion the following year, launched Prime in 2017, and held the first Prime Day. In 2018, Amazon launched a prepaid debit card and payments at the largest convenience store chain. So if Mexico is in your expansion plans, we believe you're on the right track. So here's a chart that will help you clarify the right path to enter the market. As you can see, whether you are a seller or a vendor, a quick option is to have a local existing distributor sell through Amazon either as a seller or as a vendor, but there are other options. If you're a seller, you can currently sell your US FBA inventory through NARF. That's the North America Remote Fulfillment Program by Amazon. In order to apply for this program, you have to create global listings and translate and localize your ASINs. This enables you to sell in Mexico with a 6 to 9 days prime delivery method and run advertising campaign. There is a problem, however. It does not allow you to run deals or promotions. Amazon takes care of importations, duties, delivering the item to the customer, as well as returns. As you can see, this is a very quick way to start selling in Mexico and discover what products are more suitable for this market. But if you want to have more control and be able to participate in 1 or 2 day prime delivery, as well as deals and promotions, one option is to use a third-party logistics company who will take care of all of the importation, duties, transportation of your product to Amazon warehouses, and they will even provide you with the required documentation to create a seller account in Mexico, as well as handle the invoices for the final customer. A second option would be to incorporate your company in Mexico and manage everything yourself. Now, as a vendor, it looks pretty similar. You can participate in the NAFN, the North America Fulfillment Network, and chances are that you are already in it, even if you don't know it. In this model, Amazon Mexico buys the product from Amazon US and sends the product to the final customer. The key recommendation in this case is to create global listings so you can have your ASINs translated and localized. Advertising is available in this modality. We can run both search and display campaigns. But if you want to have control, just as we were talking about on the seller methods, and be able to participate in 1 and 2 day prime delivery, one option is also to use a third-party logistics company who will take care of everything: importation, duties, transportation, and provide you with all the required documentation to become a vendor in Mexico. We can help you reach out to the vendor recruiting team locally. A second option would be to incorporate your company in Mexico and manage everything yourself. As you can see, I mean, this chart is full of information. So I wanted to take this opportunity to open up to questions because we believe that there could be a few in this section.
Yeah, go ahead and if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in the Q&A section, and we can take it from there. So one question I have here, Antonio, is are there any key differences between using the remote fulfillment programs versus 3PL? Can you take that question, Antonio? Did you get the question, or should I repeat it?
Yeah. So definitely. So I mean, there are 2 main differences, and the first one is in terms of delivery for the customer. If you're participating in either the NARF or NAFN, the customer, when they see the product, they will get a 6 to 9 Prime days delivery. Uh, but if you're using a third-party logistics company, I mean that would be traditional FBA. So the customer would get the product in 1 or 2 days. As a seller, there's also one key difference. If you're a seller, is that with NARF you are not able to participate in deals or promotions. So you can only do that if you're using a 3PL or you have already incorporated in Mexico. So I believe that just as we're trying to outline a path for sellers or vendors who are trying to get into the market, and the quick option would be to just start using one of the North America fulfillment options for both sellers and vendors.
Okay.
And as your business keeps growing and we start getting more information and more insights about what products are best performing and the volume keeps growing, well, we will then move to a 3PL strategy, and eventually, if the business becomes too big, well, we would recommend to incorporate in Mexico.
Thank you. Just a quick note to the audience. We are going to leave you with contact information towards the end of the presentation. So if you may not have questions now, but they come up later, you know how to reach us. So just FYI, we're going to do that. I have another question here, Antonio, from Helmi Ansari, is based out of Canada, I believe. So the question here is, if we ship stock from USA or Canada to Mexico, Amazon, FBA, are customs and duties an issue? How about to the end consumer shipping FBS? So that's the question.
Okay, so if can you clarify if it's a seller or a vendor?
I believe they're a seller.
They're a seller. Okay, so if they send everything to a local Amazon FBA facility, they will have to. They will have to manage all the importation and duties. That's if they do that themselves.
Okay.
In using that method, they will be able to sell locally. I believe there's just one caveat that every single customer has the option to request an invoice. So they would have to be able to invoice the customer, the end customer directly. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, again, we can get it if there's more detailed questions. Obviously, we'll give you a mechanism to reach us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, thanks, Antonio. Let's see. There's another question here, which is: do we need to be VAT registered to sell if the seller is USA or Canada based? Do you need to be VAT registered to sell? That's the question.
Can you clarify what kind of register they're talking about?
VAT, actually, Mexico VAT, value added tax registered.
Oh, yeah. So you need a VAT or the equivalent in Mexico, which is called RFC. So right now, we believe that the first option would be to participate through an ARF, because that would make their lives a lot easier than trying to incorporate in Mexico and get a local RFC. Like I mentioned, there are 3PL companies that will do that for you, and they will handle all of the importation, duties, customs, transportation of the products, and they will provide you with as a broker, so you can so you can invoice the customers and provide all of the required documentation for creating a seller account. We can provide you with some contact details for a few 3PL companies Amazon is working very closely with two of them. And I mean, there are quite a few of them, but we can definitely help you recommend one of those.
Perfect. All right. I think that's it for now, Antonio. We'll save it for the end if there's more questions.
Okay, perfect. Okay, guys, so we're halfway there. Now, regarding advertising in Mexico, you're probably familiar with this statistic. 81% of all sales in Amazon happen in the first page of search results. But before a consumer search for your products, there are a few things that we need to do. So let's start with the basics. First, you need your catalog translated and localized. Number two, just make sure that your products meet or exceeds Amazon's retail ready benchmark, as well as optimize your ASINs versus your competition. Okay. The next step, once we've gone through all of the basics, we have that covered, would be so in order to have a successful advertising strategy, is to make sure that your consumers know that they can buy your products in Amazon. Building awareness in this stage is crucial and will yield better results in the long run. We recommend you build a brand store and use Amazon Display programmatic platform to build awareness with their rich and lifestyle audiences. And Agustina will also help us discuss this in detail in a few minutes. The second part of the strategy is to increase your brand's consideration to people who are actively searching for products in your category. These are called in-market audiences in Amazon's DSP. We can also create lookalike audiences of existing customers. We combine that with a sponsor brands campaign to make sure that we catch all of the interest that we've created and turn it into a conversion. Finally, the third part of the strategy is to launch a sponsor products campaigns along with our remarketing display strategy. In this display strategy, we will reach every people who saw your product's detail page but didn't buy it. Now, diving a little deeper into the basics, I'd like to provide a few recommendations. Keep in mind that ASINs in English will deliver limited conversions since only a small percentage of the population speaks English. It is highly recommended that you translate your ASINs and make sure you do a detailed localization of titles, bullets, product description, and also units. And I want to emphasize this because Mexico, like the rest of the world, uses the metric system and not the imperial system. In addition, we recommend performing a keyword optimization for your best performing products. Now, I know what you're thinking. Translating your full catalog could be expensive and time consuming, which is why we have developed a translation solution with artificial intelligence that will help us do this at scale. So what we do is we run everything through the AI, then we pass it through human translation, and finally optimize your ASINs. And this gives us a very cost-effective solution that in order to make large catalogs manageable and actually, very affordable. We also run Intentwise technology to make sure that your ASINs are retail ready and provide you with actionable data to improve your listings. By doing a deep analysis on search trends and volume, we also provide our customers with valuable information for the optimizations of ASINs. Okay. Now, what's supported in Mexico? Most of the features available in the US for advertising are supported with the exception of display ads, product display ads. This strategy can be, is replaced by using Amazon's DSP. Brand stores, including shoppable images, are supported, A+ content, both sponsored products and sponsored brands, and Amazon DSP. I'm not gonna go in detail into this because this is where I would like to present you to Agustina Escudero, the head of DSP and agencies for Amazon Mexico. Agustina, welcome.
Thank you, Antonio, and thank you very much for everyone for joining again. I'm going to talk about all the products that we have available with the DSP or demand-side platform of Amazon here in Mexico. So there are some differences between the capabilities and functionalities that you might find in other countries. but we quickly developed a tropical solution for Mexico and the needs of our clients. So if we could go to the next stage. So the Amazon DSP is a demand side platform where you can leverage Amazon audiences to reach your potential consumers in order to boost your business goals. So as Antonio mentioned before, we can work on awareness, consideration, and purchase objectives with a DSP. And the difference that we have with other DSPs or our main differentiators are first, the first party data that I'm going to explain better in the next slides and how we can leverage that. Second one is we have precise targeting across devices and formats. Since we use our own data, we know where all the users have been connected. So if some user was looking at an ad on his cell phone and then he buys on a desktop, then we can also attribute that conversion to the campaign. That means we understand the whole path that the user is going through in order to make a purchase. Apart from that, we also have audience insights and performance analytics. What I mean with this is not only you have all the information about digital metrics, KPIs that are used in many other platforms, but we also have the retail metrics that we can leverage. So apart from impressions, clicks, CTR, conversions, we can also add for endemic clients that are selling within Amazon, all people who went to the detailed page view, people who added to the cart, how many purchases were generated by the campaign, and what is the ROAS of that campaign. Of course, depending on the goal that we have on our campaign is that the KPI that we are going to be using. We can also have insights of the audiences, of your audiences, of the campaigns. So meaning we are targeting a specific audience for a specific campaign, and then we can also give you overlap reports saying, apart from these people with this kind of characteristics that you're already impacting with your campaigns, we can also reach this and this and this other audiences that will probably have a really good performance. So we combine the performance of the campaign that is running with new audiences that we can add and be more uh, better on the results of the campaign. So comprehensive and unique supply, what we mean by this is you can access to all open auction sites, meaning all the sites that are connected to a DSP. We're connected to the main exchanges such as AdX, Rubicon, AppNexus, OpenX, which provide us to have a large scale of sites and formats. And we also have the availability to run within Amazon's O&O inventory, which is amazon.com.mx and IMDb. We have very strict brand safety guards, meaning that we take care of all the inventory and we check all the inventory that's going through our platform in order to have a brand safety environment for our advertisers. And we also provide different technologies that will help you also with viewability, brand safety, and brand awareness. So that this is double verified and integral at science. Next slide, please. So all the audiences that we have available in Mexico are, as for today, demographic audiences, lifestyle audiences. I'm going to go through the explanation of each one of them on the next slides. In market audiences, we can do lookalikes. Lookalikes is when we have a specific audience that we want to find people that are similar to the audience that we know that will do a specific action. We can also find this in many other tools in the digital ecosystem. We can make custom audiences. Custom audiences can be made with ASINs, with people that went through an ASIN and didn't buy, people that searched for a specific product, people who bought specific products with ASINs, and also people who are in subscribe and save. We can also make custom audiences for specific clients. For example, we have a lot of lifestyle audiences and in market audiences, and if you have a specific need for a specific audience that is not available yet in Mexico, we can also generate that for you. We have retargeting. We can use pixels, and we can also use ASIN retargeting. We are launching contextual H2 this year, which means that your product can be shown within a product of the same category or a complementary category of your product. Next slide, please. So we can build specific audiences with your own ASINs. What we mean is we can do retargeting of the people that looked at your ASINs and haven't bought. We can do retargeting on the people that searched your product and didn't buy, or purchased your product to do an upsell, or have a top of mind of your brand. And last but not least, you can also retarget people which are subscribed to a subscribe and save product here in Mexico. So you can also reach them to increase frequency or to provide more specific communication to these people that are already loyal to your products. Next slide, please. So the three types of main audiences that we have available, apart from the custom, are in-market audiences. These are combined by the people who are looking for a specific category. Let's say, for example, shoes, or women's shoes, or women's high heel shoes. We have that level of detail. So women high heel shoes, people who looked at that product the last 30 days and haven't bought them. Depending on the audience is the look back that we have. So it's not the same if you're looking for a TV than you're looking, for example, for a soup. The buying decision is different. So we make a look back, a different look back for each product and each audience. So in market, we have a look back of people who searched for or looked for a specific category in the last 30 days and haven't bought the product of that category. Then we have lifestyle audiences, which is broader. We do a 1 year look back to understand what the profile of the user is. So for example, if I'm a sports person, it doesn't mean that I will be buying sport equipment every month, but I've shown in the last year that I've been looking and searching for specific sports products, or bought specific shoes for, I don't know, running. So what we do with lifestyle is categorize people according to a broader level of knowledge. So we have audiences like fashionistas, fashion people, sports enthusiasts, video gamers, photography enthusiasts, and many other audiences that we have available. We can also send to you the list of the audiences that we have in Mexico, so you can check if these audiences are for your needs, or if you need more audiences for us to create locally. And we just launched 3 weeks ago demographic audiences. So if you have a specific demographic segmentation need, we can also work with that. Next slide, please. Apart from having our own audiences and the custom audiences that we already talked about, we can also leverage your audiences, the advertiser audiences. If you already have a website, we can place a pixel, understand which audiences we are seeing from Amazon there, and having a better plan or strategy for your campaign. We can also do retargeting for people who visited different sites or portals that you might have, so you can have top of mind of your brand. Apart from that, we also have advertiser hashed audiences. If you already have a database of emails, phone numbers, or phone IDs, you can leverage that to show those people a specific message. So you can include that to the DSP, and you can show those people a specific message. And last but not least is DMPs, data management platforms. If you already have within your website a data management platform, we can also integrate that to our DSP and work with those audiences. Is there any questions until now? Any questions about the audiences?
There is actually one question.
Perfect.
Actually, two questions. So one is the DSP in the Mexico market, is it available in self-serve format, or should we be should the advertiser be working with Amazon? That's question number one.
So our main, as for today, we're working very closely with agencies like Profit Logic that we're talking today. We work with the main agencies that they have the self-service tool. You can also have a self-service tool, but we do ask for minimums of investment. So in some cases, it's very good to work with an agency that already has the know-how and the capabilities to work with any budget campaign. On the other side, you can also work directly with Amazon, but also the prices are we have a minimum investment to work with Amazon directly.
Got it. That's helpful. And a couple of interesting questions here, more around site pixels and
Yes.
email lists. So the question here is, if an advertiser has an email list that is kind of US focused, can that be used to create lookalike audiences in Mexico? That's interesting.
So the answer is you can try, but we need to have at least 2,000 people that are matched. And if everyone is US and you're intending to show the ads to people in Mexico, it wouldn't make sense. So I definitely recommend you using a database in Mexico that we can do the matching in Mexico, so you can actually use that audience. If you have a US list, that will mean that it won't match, or it might match to some users that are in Mexico, but the percentage of that will be really low, so you wouldn't be able to leverage your audience.
And a follow-on question is, when it comes to putting site pixels, if the current site is kind of US focused, how would the site pixels still be useful in leveraging DSP?
Great question. So when you have a website, you get visits from all around the world. What we will be doing is, if you place an Amazon pixel within your site, we're going to be collecting all the users, but we are only going to be targeting the users that are in Mexico. So you have to make sure that your website receives visits from people from Mexico in order to be helpful for analyzing. Even though, like, we have this experiment with many, not experiment, we have this pixel place with many clients that are in US, and the volume was in some cases really high from Mexico, so it wasn't a problem to do retargeting with these audiences, or doing overlap reports to understand which audiences are also visiting your site that are buying in Amazon. But there are some other cases where the website is only US based, where you don't receive many visits from Mexico, so that in that case, the audience won't be built.
And is there a minimum number of visitors from Mexico? Is there a threshold that
2,000 visitors, like 2,000 unique users that we can actually see.
Got it. A couple of more questions, Agustina. So actually, I'm going to answer this question, and Antonio, correct me if I'm wrong. So the question is AMS available yet in Mexico? The answer is yes. And Antonio, if you want to add anything to that, please go ahead.
No, yeah, that's correct. Like I mentioned, pretty much everything that's supported in the US is supported in Mexico. There are a few limitations on search. Product display ads are not available, and like Agustina mentioned, the DSP is fully featured. There are a few characteristics in terms of audiences that they will be rolling out um, eventually, but it's pretty much the same. I think that the main difference is no self-serve display product ads.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess product display, or like what it's called sponsored display. So,
yeah, sorry, yeah, you're correct.
Yes.
Sponsored display, yeah.
So there's another question about the minimum for the self-service DSP. It's $100,000. So this is because we are a small team. As for today, that's why we leverage our partnership with agencies that have already been trained in order to be able to run all the campaigns successfully for all the advertisers. So yes, we do have a minimum. you can access to that minimum. If you can have a minimum, is because we are a small team of people that need to do trainings. So every time someone gets a license, we do in-person trainings. We do at least between 5 or 6 trainings of the products. We also help with PSC that will help implement, optimize, and do it reportings for the first time. So there's a lot of work on our side for each license that is acquired. So we make sure that we at least have a minimum spend in order to place our time on places that we can actually see scale.
Yeah. So one clarifying question, Agustina, is that 100,000
$1,000
US? You're talking about US?
US. But I want to make a clarification. We do all the billing in Mexican pesos, but that's the amount because we are talking in uh, within to the US market. I'm talking about dollars, but yes, it's 100,000 US dollars.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So I think those are the questions for right now. And uh, let's see. Do you have any more content here to cover, Agustina?
No, everything's fine from my side. If there's any other questions, I'll be happy to answer by the end of the webinar.
Sure. Actually, there's a couple more coming up here. The uh, so the question is around competitiveness of CPCs in the Mexico market. Meaning, I guess let me frame it this way, right? Like a lot of new markets, there's this honeymoon period where there's a lot less competition, CPCs are lower. So Antonio or Agustina, any color or anything you can share about what you're seeing when it comes to CPC competitiveness?
So on the DSP side, sorry for that. On the DSP side, we do have really, we are over the or above the KPI of CTR that's within open auction, and I believe that's because of the quality of our audiences. So in display, you might find a CTR between 0.15 and 0.25, that's the average, and we are perceiving higher CTRs than that. But the CTR is not only the first important things, but what it drives to the effective CPC. So the prices of the open auction that we have are the same of any other DSP, but since we have a higher CTR, in depending on the cases, of course, if it's a good, uh, a good targeting for the product that I'm selling, or a good strategy or a good tactic, you will get a higher CTR, and that will lead into clicks or also purchases. So on the DSP, we have a attribution model, which is 14 days. Which means if I saw an ad and within those 14 days I'm buying that, or if I clicked an ad and I'm buying that product, we also consider that as part of a sell, which is 14 viewable attribution model as for today. So we're not only considering the clicks, but also the awareness that the campaign is generating. But apart from that, we are also leveraging clicks over impressions. So for example, if a user has been shown for a specific message of a specific product and it sees it, and in like the same day or the next day he clicks an ad on sponsor ads, the attribution will go to sponsor ads. So we do have this attribution model, but display we buy through CPM, we see CTRs, but we mainly focus on other KPIs that are better for the business.
Thank you, Agustina. And I would just would like to just clarify one thing is that DSP is bought on a CPM basis, while search is bought on a CPC
Exactly.
basis. So I think that in Mexico we are, in terms of search, we're halfway into the honeymoon period. Yeah, I mean, and that depends on the category. So most of the categories that we've seen have extremely low CPCs still, but there are a few that are getting competitive as larger and larger Fortune 500 companies start investing in search. In terms of display, I think that I mean CPMs are very competitive, but One thing that probably the audience will find interesting is that um, the cost in comparison to the US is still very attractive. So
Yes,
CPMs are way cheaper and CPCs are
way cheaper.
way cheaper in Mexico than in the US. So just to give you a range of CPCs locally for that could be, I mean, ranging from 5 cents to 30 cents of dollar CPCs for competitive categories. So in comparison to to the US, it's very attractive.
Awesome. There is another question from the audience, which is, would you recommend, now that we have both of you, do you have a recommendation for allocation of budgets between AMS, search and DSP, basically?
Do you want me to take that, Antonio?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this depends very much on the category that we are working on. So for example, in Mexico, we do have some categories that have a large volume of search, and search has a pretty good ROAS. So we always try to start with search and then leverage DSP. There are some categories that aren't looked so much. So this means that the search campaigns have a really low spend. What we're doing there is having a higher percentage of DSP in order to create high awareness and consideration, in order for people to start understanding that the product is available within Amazon and start searching for that and also buying. It depends on how in many factors. So how new is your brand to Amazon Mexico? It depends on which is your category, and it depends on the goal you might have. So it's not the same that you might be work, for example, on January, if you're having a campaign on January, than if you're having a campaign on Prime Day. So it's very different, all the budget allocation, and it depends on the category, the product, how new your brand is to Amazon, and we can also give you the recommendations that we see the best according to your brand.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing we can do is, outside of this forum, we can certainly follow up with Augustina and Antonio to kind of get very specific about numbers, and if we are able to share more information about your brand, current status of presence, so on and so forth. There's a couple more questions, but I personally have a question for you, Antonio. I mean, you touched on this earlier in the presentation. Having seen, the advertising effectiveness, certainly in the US, for several years now, the importance of content is just so crucial, and it continues to become more and more important. So the fact that you're addressing the translation problem with a piece of technology is actually super interesting. Perhaps you could just share, anecdotally, how long does it take you guys to stay from zero to having a reasonable amount of content translated for a given brand? Just some sense of timelines, so that I'm sure some of the audience is thinking, what does it really take for me to launch? And translation is a critical aspect of it. So any anecdotal information you can share, that'll be helpful.
Yeah, definitely. So we started thinking about this when we got approached by a very large vendor in the US, and I believe they had around 6,000 ASINs. So I mean, just the cost of translation was way too expensive for the brand. It would, I mean, doing a regular translation would have consumed most of their marketing budget. So the way we started thinking about this is that I mean, you don't need to do a little a literal translation or a perfect English to Spanish translation. What you need to do is a perfect localized translation. So you
Yep.
need an ASIN that sells, and you need an ASIN that's optimized for the keywords that people are using. So in terms of so we try to do this at scale, and we build this platform in order to be able to, just do AI translation, and that's we can do that in terms of seconds. For like it takes a few minutes just to translate 6,000 ASINs. Um, and then the human translation and optimization is actually very fast because most of the heavy lifting has been done. So we can deliver, between 5 and 25 asins per day, like fully optimized. And like I said, I mean, depending on the catalog, we do some sort of recommendations. So if you have a very large catalog, we would recommend to do an AI translation for most of them, and pick the ASINs that are representing 80% of the total sales, and do a detailed localization and optimization for those ASINs. So I think that that's typically a 2 to 4 window period. I'm sorry, 2 to 4 week period where we get all of the content side of the equation done. And I mean, and after that, we keep track of it using Intentwise technology for content optimization and ranking.
Perfect. So there is that's super helpful. There's a question around an upcoming event. Children's Day in Mexico is a big deal. I think it's coming up on April 30th. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's called Children's Day. It's April the 30th, and so I think that the answer depends on what category you're in. So
Yes.
if you're in toys, it's definitely a huge seasonality. And I mean, so toys, gifts, and children related products, because it is a big seasonality for presents in Mexico. So it's definitely something to look at.
Yeah, and Antonio, just to clarify, the question is coming from someone in the toy category, and the specific question was like, is there any kind of recommendations or things to consider from a planning perspective? And perhaps it's something we can follow up with them. Maybe it's a loaded question, but any quick comments you might have, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I mean, we definitely usually recommend a DSP strategy for awareness in the 2 weeks prior to the seasonality, and with this kind of 1 day seasonality, we also recommend our advertisers to either double or triple the budget for Amazon search in in the in the previous 1 or 2 weeks before the event, because most of the purchases are going to be coming in the previous weeks, where moms and parents are getting ready, buying presents for their kids. So we can follow up with a detailed recommendation based on the types of toys and the brand. But I think that a good rule of thumb is, in any seasonality, either double or triple the budget for Amazon search, and run awareness and consideration campaigns on DSP during the prior weeks, and then during the days of the seasonality, go heavy on remarketing and for with the DSP.
Awesome. Yeah. Again, for the audience, we're going to leave you with contact information, and some of these questions obviously need a bit more depth in terms of information that's required to answer them appropriately. So we're happy to follow up with you on those. There's another question here about the translation technology, Antonio. It's like the question here is the translation technology available for use standalone, or does it only come when they engage your agency? That's the question.
I mean, we don't have a self-serve polished platform yet for the translation. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, we can definitely provide access. It's not ready for prime time. There's a few, mostly cosmetic things to work on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can definitely talk about it, and we would love to have a more in-depth discussion about it.
Yeah. No, yeah. So I think, again, obviously it's built for internal use, but it can be exposed for external use. Just have the right expectation that it's not a productized version, but let's connect offline if this is of interest, and we can take it further. There's also a request if there's a promotional calendar for 2020 to share that out.
We can definitely get you that.
Okay.
For all the important dates in Mexico. I think Antonio just showed a previous slide with what we had for this year, like Prime Day, Hot Sale, Children's Day, Mother's Day. So if not, we can send you that information for sure.
Yeah, and we'll.
It also depends on your category. There might be some events that are more important for your category, like Mother's Day or Children's Day, like you asked. But we can definitely send the calendar.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we'll share it with the audience. Any other questions? No additional questions at this point, Antonio and Agustina.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I mean, we're gonna talk a little bit about sponsor brands and sponsor products, but we're pretty sure that this has been covered. I mean, without further ado, we would like to thank you all for participating in our webinar. Agustina, thank you so much for being here with us and giving us all of the information for the Amazon DSP, and also Srinath, thank you for hosting us.
No, absolutely.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Antonio.
Absolutely. I mean, Agustina kind of decided to join us, just 2 or 3 days back. Sincerely appreciate you joining us, Agustina.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you everyone for joining.
Yeah, and from a logistics perspective, again, we're going to share out the webinar or the recording of the webinar shortly. You have our emails in front of you. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Some of you have asked questions that may require follow-ups. Happy to do that after the webinar. But yeah, thank you so much. With that, we'll call this a wrap. Stay healthy with all the things that are going on outside out there. And until next time, we'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.